Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin percentage of supply in profit and loss. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, while the price of Bitcoin right now bores us to tears, considering that the price hasn't really moved all month, it could be a good time to go through some of these other indicators that aren't really as useful on a daily time frame, but it's one of those indicators to remember throughout the cycles, right? Throughout the cycles, I like to come back to this chart. We talked about this chart a lot in late 2022. Um, I personally think the value in this chart comes more from predicting bottoms than predicting tops, if that makes sense. And I just want to put it out there as a chart to keep in mind, especially, let's say, by late 2026. The reason I say that is because, first of all, we have the supply in profit. It looks something like this, right? So obviously, when Bitcoin is pushing all-time highs, you have 100% of the coins, 100% of the supply in profit. And when you're in bear markets, you can see the percent of supply in profit can drop below 50. You can see throughout all of Bitcoin's history that it's never dropped below 30, right? So there's never been a time where it's actually dropped below 30. Now, if you look at the supply in loss, it's sort of the opposite, right? It goes up to the extreme. So this is not 100% over here, right? This only goes up to 60. So you can see that obviously during bear markets, the supply in loss goes up, and during bull markets, the supply in the percent of supply in loss goes down. But what I like to do is overlay them together, right? I mean, essentially, they're just 100 minus supply and profit is the supply in loss, but I like to overlay it because it really does a great job of simplifying the market cycles, right? There's a lot of indicators out there, and I have my own indicators, obviously, and there's also a lot of indicators on the website. But at the end of the day, I mean, all models are wrong. Some are useful, and I do think this is one of the more useful models just because of how simple it is. If you apply a 30-day moving average to kind of clean this up, you'll see that essentially every time that the supply and profit and loss, like anytime they cross each other, so basically anytime the supply and profit goes below 50%, right? But anytime they cross each other, that tends to correspond to cycle bottoms or thereabouts, right? There are times when they cross where it's not the cycle bottom just yet. You can see like in 2014, they crossed in October, and then they ended up crossing a few more times. But the point is to say, if you're looking for sort of macro entries into Bitcoin, where it's bled down throughout like a 70-80% bear market, this chart is a really useful chart to use because it will show you when you reach that milestone in those bear markets as to when it could be sort of the period that it starts to turn back around. So that's why I like it to use as an indicator for looking at bottoms, right? We talked about this chart a lot in 2022, and we talked about the 30-day SMA crossing, and they did cross, I think, even though they only crossed for a single day. Technically, they still did cross. Um, Now, the other way to look at it, of course, I'm sure everyone wants to know, does the supply and profit, is it able to predict tops? It's not as accurate at predicting tops. And the reason for that, at least historically, is because the bull markets historically have lasted longer than the bear markets, right? The bull markets have historically lasted 3 years, and the bear markets have historically lasted 1 year. And so, because of that, you'll see the supply and profit go up, right, to 100%, but it can stay there, right? I mean, for a long time. I mean, if you take the moving average back out of this, you can see that back in like the 2017 cycle, it hit 100% in January, And if you had sold all your Bitcoin then, you would have sold it at $900. But then we know that Bitcoin 20x'd from that price, right? Because it went from, from 900 all the way up to 19,000. So that's a 20x move. And you wouldn't have wanted to use this indicator by itself to figure out what's going on in the market. Furthermore, like in 2013, it went up to those higher levels, and you might have assumed the cycle was over, but it wasn't. And even this cycle, right? There's already been an instance where it went up here, and then it went up there again. So I don't think it's as useful for identifying tops than it is bottoms, but it does provide some simplicity to the cryptoverse, especially if you can take a step back and not worry so much about what's happening on a day-to-day basis, right? And so I like to use that chart for those purposes, especially when you sort of get into the the weeds of the bear market days back in like 2014, 2018, and of course 2022. But again, historically, we've seen the bull markets last 3 years, the bear markets last one. At some point, you could see that change, right? We've talked about the idea of cycles that could play out in a different manner, but that hasn't happened just yet. And I would again say that this is one of those indicators that is better for predicting lows than highs. But I just wanted to talk about this indicator with you guys, just so you know that it exists. It is there, and it gives us something to talk about when the price of Bitcoin just isn't doing anything, right? There's an ebb and flow to the cycles, and when the markets are calmer, I think it allows people to make more rational decisions, come up with plans for the future, right? And say, well, look, I don't know when you're going to see these things cross again, but historically, when they do, it's a good opportunity. So keep it in the back of your mind. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. We'll keep this one short. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and again, check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. See you guys next time. Bye.